Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another topic video. Obviously, this is now our replacement for race previews. Last week, obviously, we looked about kind of the safety implications after Antoine Hubert's tragic death in 2019, and obviously looking at how Juan Manuel Correa's recovery is going. Now we look ahead to this weekend's action in Monza, and well, it is the Temple of Speed, so what a better time to kind of look at comparisons, looking at the engines. And I know obviously clicking on this video, everyone will probably have an idea of obviously who is on top in those, but we're going to take a closer look, comparing the engines, obviously ranking them where they were, comparing their kind of speed traps from Belgium in 2019 to 2020 as well, a power-hungry circuit, and yeah, just really kind of trying to take as deep a look as we can. Obviously, though, a disclaimer, yeah, we believe these are as accurate as we can kind of get them for the information that is publicly available to us on that front. And a massive thank you to John T, as always, our stats man, who really helps kind of find our stats and yeah, help us out on the channel. So John T, thank you as always. His Twitter is in the description down below if you want to follow him out. Great, passionate F1 fan. But I'm going to hand you over to Stephen to start off this video with the stats.
Oh yeah.
The man with the graphs.
I'm the conveyor of stats.
He's the conveyor of stats. The stats have been brought to us and now they are conveyed.
Yes, stats man, find stats. Conveyor of stats, says stats. You are listener of stats.
I listen stat.
You're interpreter of stats.
I interpret stat well.
Yes, on to the stats. So, starting off with the brake horsepower of the four engines. And we took this from motorsport.com, and they based it on the Silverstone. They said they found data from the Silverstone qualifying Grand Prix, so the first Silverstone. So this is what these stats are based on. So, Mercedes at the top with 1,022 brake horsepower. Then we have Honda at 994, Renault at 985, and then Ferrari at the bottom, 980.
I think looking at those kind of first stats and first graphs, interpret stat man is in to go there. The brake horsepower is so close and so marginal. I think now obviously we've been through 7 years you know, in these rules and regulations. They are the difference, probably millisecond, and you know, we are talking about the top level in terms of that, but that's probably where, you know, expected thing. The Honda project there, I'd expect them to probably be a little bit closer. The party modes as well obviously come into play, but this weekend is the first weekend those party modes will be banned, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yes, all the teams have their own little party modes.
Exactly, so it'll be interesting to see if it's closer. Was it actually benefiting more teams that we didn't realise? Renault had a party mode, I believe, in there. I'm sure Honda had their own version of qualifying party mode, as they like to call it. What a weird thing to kind of call it. It's like, party mode, whoa!
Someone probably said it once and then it's just stuck ever since.
Yeah, just imagine like little mechanics jumping around the engine going, woo, let's go! That's a strange sight. But yeah, that obviously is the first stat in terms of brake horsepower. You can see there's very similar, and you can just see where that drop off in Ferrari, because from last year you would expect Ferrari to have been bang on top of Mercedes or at least level, and they've dropped off, what was that, about 40 brake horsepower, about 42 brake horsepower from Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah, 42.
Which, yeah, is absolutely kind of mental to imagine.
Mercedes were trying to match their engine from last year, and obviously Ferrari lost their engine from last year, so hence the big gap.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think one of the... No, I probably shouldn't quote it, but I'm sure a mechanical site, when they were designing the car, they were expecting about 60 more horsepower in the car.
I would imagine so.
That's what they decided.
I would imagine so. That's definitely what they were doing. They built this year's car definitely on the basis of they would have last year's engine, and that hasn't gone well.
Yeah.
In terms of that. Next graph.
Well, okay, so the next two graphs, as we said, are the speed traps at Spa comparing 2019 and 2020. I've done a breakdown of the engine and a breakdown of the teams. Where shall we stop by first?
Let's go breakdown of the engine. So we'll look at it as a whole before we kind of look in teams, because there are obviously interesting customer teams within there as well.
Yeah. So, I'll start off with 2019, the Spa speed trap results. Mercedes, the fastest Mercedes powered car was 314.6 kilometers an hour. Fastest Honda powered car was 309.7 kilometers per hour. The fastest Renault powered car is 316.9 kilometers an hour. Fastest Ferrari, number one, I think it was Sebastian Vettel, 317.7 kilometers an hour.
Which, that's crazy actually in terms of looking at it. And I think that shows that actually, you know, although Mercedes have the better engine, the setups, because obviously we know from the weekend that McLaren and Renault took gambles on those lower downforce, low drag setups. So they were going to go quicker, and we know Honda slapped a bit more downforce on, being a little bit quicker, and also Mercedes did, because I believe they were slower in the straights. Well, than both the Renaults and Ferraris as well, which makes it even more depressing for Ferrari. It just showing how the complete package is completely poor, I think, on that front. But yeah, Renault were, I think, a big surprise from Belgian Grand Prix. Maybe not a big surprise. Over the past couple of years, their engine definitely has been very strong on the power.
Yeah.
Hungry in power unit circuits. And
shall we look how it compares to this year's?
Yeah, certainly. Let's go.
Man. So Renault was second last year. So this year, fastest Mercedes powered car was a speed trap of 312.6 kilometers an hour. Fastest Honda powered car was 312 on the dot kilometers an hour. Fastest Renault was 313.4 kilometers an hour. And the fastest Ferrari powered car, the most telling stat here, 308.1 kilometers an hour. So Renault the fastest, Mercedes second, and Ferrari in a different league of their own, which we like to call the Ferrari Formula 1 Championship.
That is the most stark difference, isn't it? And I think that's the one that we've seen so much. Obviously, looking at it last year, you know, probably Mercedes were influenced a bit because they spent the majority of the race behind Charles Leclerc defending, and Sebastian Vettel holding up the Mercedes as well on that front. But yeah, just this year, that kind of shift in balance of power and Honda being much closer to the package. And it actually shows how much Honda are developing and getting better, which adds, I think, probably hope for 2022.
Yeah, Renault, second last year, first this year. As we say, the setup is quite a big part of that. I think that Mercedes time was done by Racing Point, because obviously Mercedes were running at high downforce this year. So yeah.
Interesting, that one.
So
well,
there's the engines.
Let's jump into... That was the engines. Let's jump into the teams and see who was the quickest out of the teams in the speed traps.
Here we go.
I think we all know what's going to happen in the Ferrari powered cars.
Deep breath. Okay, 2019. Mercedes are 309.9 kilometers an hour. Racing Point 314.6. Williams 302.9. Remember that, because I think that's quite a good one to look at 2020. Red Bull are 309.7. AlphaTauri 306.2. Ferrari 317.7, Alfa Romeo 312.2, Haas 312.7, Renault 316.9, and McLaren 310.9. So Ferrari 1, Renault 2, Racing Point 3. And Williams, the 302 point something, the real low of the bunch.
Yeah, that is crazy. And I think that's in line with where we thought, I think they would be and where everything was last year. We thought Ferrari were the fastest, Mercedes obviously second below there. Again, we're thinking, obviously they spent the majority of the year behind Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel in 2019. So yeah. I think that probably affected the Mercedes a little bit in that front. But yeah, it was interesting on that front to see.
Yeah, and all three Ferrari power cars doing pretty good. I think the others had 312s through the speed trap. So yeah, Ferrari. That's why I got a shirt for the best engine on the grid.
Clearly.
2020, here we go.
2020, let's go.
Here we go. Mercedes, with that high downforce setup, only recorded a 308. Racing Point, 312.6. Williams, a 308.9. So that's like 6 kilometres an hour quicker than last year. Red Bull had a 309.5. AlphaTauri 312, Ferrari 306.1, Alfa Romeo 307.2, Haas 306.7, Renault 313.4, and McLaren 312.7. So both Renault engines topping the charts there. Racing Point making another appearance in the top 3. AlphaTauri, I presume that was Pierre Gasly tearing it up with the 4th highest.
I tell you what,
speed there.
That's really interesting, actually, comparing the speed traps, because Racing Point and McLaren both up there, but both, I would say, had pretty disappointing races in comparison to Renault, who were also well up there.
Yeah.
So it just shows. Now, I think it shows from these kind of engine comparisons that the engine package, yes, it's hell of important, but it's how it works with the whole car and everything there. Because, like, yeah, Mercedes on that speed trap kind of pace there, you're going, hang on a minute, is that right? And the speed trap, so for people who don't understand what the speed trap is, it's usually on the longer straight on an F1 track.
I believe that's Spa, it's at the beginning of the Kemmel Straight. Well, on the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's in the middle, it's where the car should be at its fastest and not kind of deficited at all by loss of power through the energy stores, kind of reducing through there. So it is really interesting to compare, and obviously, you know, we've looked at 2019, 2020 at a track, we've looked at, you know, comparisons in terms of the teams, overall top speeds and where they look at from that front. So look, I think coming into this video you would have gone Mercedes is the best engine. Yes, it is, in terms of ultimate brake power, and especially in qualifying with that party mode, they just have a level advantage over, and over that 1 lap pace, that's a massive advantage for qualifying. That they can just have that extra boost in horsepower, and that really, even though it's marginal kind of differences in horsepowers, you would think there's not like 100 or whatever difference in horsepower, or 50 or 40. Well, in some cases for Ferrari it is. But you know, it's interesting to see that, yes, it really assists in qualifying, but it's the whole package, how it fits together in the race.
Yeah. In
terms of that, and although Renault have a super powerful engine, and maybe even at times more powerful than Honda, Honda maybe have the better 1 lap pace. Over the course of the race, it's Red Bull's superior chassis and aero that keeps them ahead of a team like Renault. But I think it probably shows Renault are stepping up.
Yeah, with their engine. Yeah, especially. It's looking very, topping the charts on both speed traps. Well, second in last year. 3rd highest horsepower engine, according to motorsport.com. Yeah. Renault looking to bridge the gap for 2022, basically.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting one, and, you know, I suppose probably a good discussion to have within this now is, would Red Bull have made the right choice? Obviously, they've got Honda and Renault, and I think they probably have made the right choice, because Honda is just purely, focused on them. They give Red Bull everything they need, and we've shown just actually looking at those graphs how much improvement Honda themselves have made in that year. Like Renault was clearly ahead, and now they're kind of neck and neck. And by the qualifying pace one, at Silverstone, Honda was actually better than Renault. So it shows probably that they would in the long run anyway. But for them and Red Bull being a team and a prospect of going forward, they've made the right choice in there. And I suppose the last point and discussion point to really talk about engines is Ferrari. And it's amazing. You can see clearly there's every team has developed. Mercedes have developed, Honda have developed, Renault have developed. Honda's probably had the biggest improvement, I would say, in this time, where Mercedes already were on a pretty high bar level that probably the speed traps doesn't do them justice for in the Belgian Grand Prix. But, they were pushed by the Ferrari of last year and found another gear. Ferrari clearly didn't develop. They had their loophole, which basically last year they had some form, it was maybe shorting out the fuel gauge. The FIA looked into it and couldn't find anything at fault. But I think Ferrari in the deal openly admitted what they had done, and therefore it was ruled out, and they've agreed to remove it from there and maintained a good positive relationship with the FIA. But the subsequence of that is they just clearly didn't develop, did they?
No. But the thing is, just looking at the brake horsepower, it's not actually that far off.
No.
Well, okay, 42. I'm not an engine expert, but 42 doesn't sound like a huge margin that will actually that's translating in the race, the actual distance between Ferrari and the rest. But it's like we mentioned earlier, they've designed a car for that 1,040, 60 horsepower. But instead they've got one at 980. And so the balance of the car is all wrong because of that.
Yeah, and it just seems incredibly poor management. I think we spoke about it in the Race Review podcast in terms of to be something that was so on the line. That fuel injection thing was clearly, it was on the cusp. It was in a gap of knowledge, and those type of things can go either way. But they've put so much effort into that in terms of building a whole car around that being deemed legal for the rest of the time. Maybe they were hoping, maybe the FIA will kind of let us go because they want a competitive championship ever competing with Mercedes. That's the only thing you can think of, but it's mad. And, going into Monza, where you would rank the engines, it would be Mercedes 1, Honda 2, Renault 3, but those two are very close, and I would say interchangeable, and it's going to be fascinating to see this weekend. And then 4 and way below those would be Ferrari. And, going into the Temple of Speed, it is usually that time to show off engines. Ferrari have had this history, I think when you look at the Ferrari versus Ford film, for example, in something like Le Mans, the Ferrari engines were more the handmade specifically, really focused. Every engine was delicate and kind of handmade on there, and there was more kind of mass manufacturing in Ford. Obviously, I believe in their kind of prototype cars, they did obviously hand build and spend a bit more knowledge on that. But it's for a team that have been renowned for their pace and power. Their circuit is Monza. Is that is it? Yeah. That is their literal show off. And to be getting to this stage, it's embarrassing. And Mercedes, their biggest rivals in the sport over the course of obviously the past 7 years within the sport, we now go into dominating. It is crazy that we are looking at, and it hurt them. I remember the 2017-18 seasons where Ferrari didn't have the power to compete at their home circuits, but they were competing more over the course of the calendar. But now they don't even have that. they're just nowhere. And yeah, the engine race has well and truly been won by Mercedes through the entirety of the turbo hybrid era.
Yeah, and it's kind of thanks to Ferrari, because last year's Ferrari engine pushed Mercedes to a whole nother level on their engine. And then Ferrari were like, nah, we're not in this fight anymore. So Mercedes are at the top, miles ahead of the chasing pack, thanks to Ferrari.
Yeah, they've created their own demon, and F1 this season is probably thanks to Ferrari in terms of how far they pushed that Mercedes last season. But yes, that is a look at the engines. Let us know in the comments down below if you have any other stats that you found. Obviously, we'll be very interested to know, or if you kind of agree or disagree with our rankings. I think the two you can argue with is probably the Renault and the Honda engines. Go from there. But yes, maybe not an unpredictable top and bottom within that list, and with only 4 manufacturers in, it's there. But it was interesting to just take a little deeper look at how the teams compared, and also showing how important it is having that engine, not only for horsepower, but also, you know, part of the whole package, and the different setups in a car are so important to having a successful race car as well. And Mercedes have it both. So I think that sums it up. But enjoy the weekend's action at Monza, guys. As always, we'll try and get a live stream. It might happen yesterday or something over the course of a weekend. But that's been it from us today. So leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're new around here or haven't done so already, what can they do, Stephen?
They can like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding that bell. Still going for those star points. But that's it from us today, guys. We hope you've enjoyed the topic video. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.